All right, welcome back, everybody. So today I want to preview the balls that have been recently announced by this Storm family, the 900 Global Eternity and the Roto Grip TNT. So let's start with the Eternity. Eternity, at least on paper, maybe you might not think so, but when you get it in hand, it's actually going to remind a lot of people of the Hypercell Fused, which is going to be a good thing because that Hypercell Fused was a good ball. But anyway, let's get to a little bit of the specs. So it uses the S84 Pearl cover stock, which we've seen before, or S84 response, I should say. And it has this new Epoch asymmetric core. Essentially, it's a very large core. It's finished in reactor gloss. First, let me talk about that. I will never test another ball with reactor gloss finish. We will resurface the ball before we test it, probably at 500, 1,000, and then step two, compound on it. And that way it has some grit, and I like a compound finish anyway better than a pure shine. Yeah, I mean, and in fact, we've tested the reactor gloss, and every single time we wound up needing to scuff it. In fact, the last couple tests, we just scuffed it straight away, and even then, it didn't really work all that great. Now, in terms of so the cover we've seen, it's a sort of a higher end pearl cover. I think we've seen it on the Altered Reality, if I remember correctly, and this core now, the Epoch core, Storm. I'm gonna keep saying Storm, but 900 Global says that the Epoch core should appear a bit earlier and more aggressive. I mean, let's just look at the specs quickly. So it is kind of a bigger blocky core. 15 pounds is 249, 050, 014. 14 pounds is 251, 044, 011. So it's got a medium mass bias. And then I guess just since they talked about the disturbance core is really a kind of a block shaped core, and that was 249, 052, 018 for the 15 pound, and 14 pound was 250, 052, 018 mass bias. So essentially, my takeaway is that it's going to come down to the difference in the mass bias. And because the mass bias is a little lower, you're probably going to get a ball that, just has a little bit more continuation down lane. So it's going to look bigger in theory, is my guess. Sometimes a strong asymmetric kind of has the ball set a little bit, roll a little bit more forward. So I think that might wind up being the difference. I expect that the Eternity fits in the mid-defined category. Balls like the Altered Reality, which I mentioned, even the Hypercell Fuse that I mentioned, if you used it out of box or sort of like with some shine, was a ball you'd use for mid-defined, which is sort of the medium volume where you still want strong shape down lane. So that's kind of where I expect this ball to fit. Now let's jump over and talk about the Roto Grip TNT. I'm looking forward to this one. The TNT is a solid cover stock. It's an E-Trax Plus. It's finished at 2000 grit, and it has also a new core called the Torpex core. The Torpex and this Torpex core is a little interesting in that it has this sort of inner sphere, which reminds me of the FE2 core in the High Road. There have been some other balls previously that had a little sort of sphere in the center. But overall, the core shape of the Torpex is actually not that different than the one we saw on the Eternity, right? The Epoch core. However, what it does not have the sort of slices taken out to create the asymmetry. So in this case, you got a 247, 052 differential, 15 pound ball, 14 Palom is 254051. I always focus on the differential. So it is a relatively high differential ball. And really, when I think about a ball like this, I'm going to first say, I think people will consider balls like this as potential benchmark balls. It is, I think balls like the phase 2, because I look at this more specifically and I fit balls like this, or I expect to fit the TNT where I fit the phase 2, which is strong control. In other words, you have a ball that is meant to handle a little bit more volumes, but has a control shape. It's easier to manage. You're not worried about it kind of snapping off down lane, or rolling a little too forward, or whatever sometimes asymmetrics do. When you compare it to the phase 2, for example, the phase 2 is a 248051 differential for 15, 253050 differential for 14. So again, if you look at the differentials, they're almost identical. So you're going to get a similar, let's say, flare potential from both balls. I do think they're probably going to roll differently because the core shape is a different core. I always, so I'm just going to leave that there. But to the point about benchmark, what I think is going to happen is, like a lot of these balls, like phase 2, people will throw them. They'll be super strong when they first get them out. They'll eventually lane shine, and people will leave them lane shine and keep bowling with them. And because they have a consistent reaction. And so people will probably leave them lane shine until it gets a little lazy and then scuff it up a little bit. And for those who want to put it very clearly in the strong control part of the bag, you probably will want to keep some surface to it. So I think I'm looking forward to both of these balls. I'm hoping that the TNT does look like a clear benchmark ball, because those are always, they're a little harder to come by. The sort of control shape balls. And the Eternity, I am hoping that it kind of has a little bit of the traditional Storm-ish look, but with a 900 global twist. So in other words, that mid-defined ball where you can rely on it to go, but not so like on-off switch, I guess. So it still should be a good mid-defined option. Okay, we will be back as soon as possible with the full reviews. Stay tuned.